At age 37, Rosanne Austin decided it was time to have a baby. But when things didn't go according to plan, she went straight to her doctor, who couldn't find any reason for why she wasn't falling pregnant. Fast forward 7 years and multiple rounds of treatment and IVF later, she hadn't gotten any closer to having her baby. But at the age of 43, she made a huge decision to stop what she'd been doing and try things a different way. And this changed everything. Rosanne fell pregnant naturally and had her son just before she turned 44. So how did she do this? In today's episode, we go through exactly what she did differently and how she now helps women to do the same.
Welcome to Your Journey to Fertility. This is the podcast that blends both science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Here each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so you can stop stressing that you'll never have a baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I have such a great episode and an amazing story coming up for you today. My guest, Rosanne Austin, is a 3-time best-selling author, and she's the creator of the Fearlessly Fertile Method. She's a former California state prosecutor turned fertility mindset mentor. I know, it's the craziest career change you can imagine. And she talks a bit about what this kind of work was like when she was trying to conceive. Rosanne overcame her own 7-year struggle with fertility and had her son naturally at the age of almost 44, when traditional medicine had given up on her completely. She helps women get and stay pregnant by teaching them to think, believe, and take action like a fertility success. Supported by her books, her podcast, her online courses and retreats, Rosanne's clients become the mum they were always meant to be. She's also such a great storyteller, and she gets straight to the point. This is an episode for anyone trying to conceive, but especially if you feel like you're at the point where you feel like giving up. So I hope you find some inspiration in her words. Here's Rosanne. Rosanne, welcome to the podcast. Really excited to have you here today. Can we start by learning a little bit more about you? Can you tell us about your journey, the work that you do?
Yes, and I'm so excited to be on and sharing this story because I think it is it's an interesting one to say the least. So I started my journey, it feels like 4,000 years ago, but it really did start when I was a prosecutor in California. I was a prosecutor in a specialized sexual assault unit around the time that I decided it was time to be a mom. And my husband and I were really excited. We were both in law enforcement, and we had spent so much time giving to other people and taking care of our community that we thought, hey, this is really our time to put our roots down. And I was at a point in my career where I was really becoming masterful at what I was doing. And so I said, okay, you know what? This is the time. And I had heard somewhere along my lifetime and, from the grapevine that as you get older, getting pregnant is harder. And I didn't think that I thought as much of that as I did, but it really got into my head. And when my husband and I started to try and things weren't happening, I went into a full-blown panic because this was the first time in my life that I didn't work at something and immediately have a payoff, right? So I wasn't looking for things to be easy. I wasn't looking for handouts when it came to my fertility, but I figured that if I put my mind to something, it's going to happen. Well, it didn't. And so I did the thing that most women do. I immediately booked in with my OBGYN and said, we want to have a family. We've been trying for this long. Nothing's happening. And she was initially very calm about it. I was not. And in typical trial attorney fashion, I went nuclear. I was like, I'm going to go above her. I'm going to go 50 floors above her.
Yeah.
Booked in with a fertility clinic and was promptly told that my chances of getting pregnant were virtually like non-existent because I was ancient at that point. And I was like on the younger end of 37 around that time. And I freaked out because I just was like, what? You know, it was kind of the first time I'd ever been confronted really with something physically wrong with me. And so that really began a spiral of crazy that went on for 7 years. We immediately went into an IVF cycle. Like nobody even bothered testing my blood, barely did an antral follicle count. It was like, you're how old? IVF is your only option, basically. I mean, I asked for nuclear though, so I got nuclear. So I understand that. Like, I don't blame anybody for my choices, but it really opened my eyes because I didn't feel old. I didn't look old. I mean, I'm 50 now and I still don't look my age. And I just didn't like, none of these things were making sense to me. And on top of that, I was trying serious violent sex crimes. Like, well, all sex crimes are serious and violent, but you know, it was some of the worst of the worst. And so I was going from trying my cases to doctor's appointments to, you know, starting insane diets. I was doing all of these things, but nothing was working. And our first IVF cycle failed. It doesn't surprise me whatsoever that it failed because I wasn't in the right headspace. Everything was fear-based. I had selected the worst possible physician on the planet to help me, you know, achieve fertility success. They told me I needed donor eggs since I was 37. Like with one failed IVF, I was told I needed a donor egg. And I was like, no exaggeration. I was like this. In the doctor's office, I was catatonic. Like I could not believe the words that were coming out of this person's mouth. And that was a giant wake-up call. And I said, you know what? I need to do something different. So I started sniffing around at these alternative medicine things. I was like, okay, all right, maybe I'll do a little acupuncture. I started going down a rabbit hole. And I realized, holy crap, there's like this constellation of other things I can be doing other than Western medicine. And so I was doing all the things. I was doing all the treatments, diets, lotions, potions, yoga poses. I was regressing to my past lives. I was dealing with old, you know, all kinds of crazy things. I went to a medical intuitive who was scanning my body over the phone. Like it was just cuckoo. I was boiling black chickens that I would have to go to San Francisco's Chinatown to go get. And it was just, it became a way of life. And we just kept failing and failing and failing, driving thousands of miles a week to go to whatever appointments, scans, whatever. They could never find anything wrong with us. And then it occurred to me, I'm like, wait a second. I'm doing all these things, but when I think about how I feel and what I'm thinking, and ultimately how I'm behaving in this process, it was absolute garbage. It was fear, doubt, negativity, shame, comparison, jealousy. I mean, like this whole hideous cocktail of negative thoughts, beliefs, feelings. I mean, it was like I was living a double life. On the outside, I looked completely put together, badass trial attorney, put me in a room with a homicidal maniac and we'll get a conviction. Like it was all of that was fine. But on the inside, I was broken, completely and utterly broken. So I started to look at this whole mindset thing. You know, I was one of those people that was so delightfully ignorant of all of this that I thought I was too good for it. I figured if the state of California could possibly trust me with a death penalty, I could think my way through this process. But it was insanely humbling what I began to realize about myself and my thought process. So when I started looking at mindset and started changing and examining what I thought of myself within the context of my fertility, it was like the doors were blown off to my success. It was like, boom. And I got pregnant for the first time. And I was like, wow, after all of these years of suffering, after all of these treatments, the one thing that was different was me. And I initially succeeded. Now, I didn't carry that baby to term. I miscarried that baby. However, what I learned lit a fire in my heart that is still burning white hot to today. And I was like, okay, I got to share this with other women. And so I just started teaching other women what I had learned. And all of the women that were coming to me were getting pregnant left and right, like in very quick succession. And ultimately, a couple years later, I got pregnant naturally when they told me it was virtually impossible. And I gave birth to my son shortly before turning 44. So as a result of mindset, because at that point we had stopped doing IVF. Like after my miscarriage, I was like, you know what? I'm done with IVF. I wasn't mad about it. I wasn't like, fuck you to IVF. It was more like, I'm at peace with where I am at. And I am at peace with where I am headed. And I knew it wasn't for me. So it was like me, my husband, and God, universe, source. That's all I had. But for me, that was a majority. So I started consistently applying what I was learning. And in 2017, I had my son. So that's how like all of this came about. And so I started teaching more and more women. And then all of those teachings turned into the first book, the second book, the third book, and then my fourth book that was published in August of this year. So it's created this body of work that is based on the principle that women have the ability to overcome their past and construct a way of thinking that supports their fertility success in a very logical and linear way. Like it sounds so woo-woo. And I mean, look, I thought that way too, until I saw the proof, not only in myself, but in the women that I work with. So that may be a very long-winded answer to a short question, but I think it gives you the context and I think it gives you the perspective from which I come to this work.
Thank you for sharing that, Rosanne. What a story. And there are so many similarities from what you went through to my journey as well. And I think that so many women listening to this can relate to this idea of being smart and educated, and they've worked hard their whole life and they march to this beat of effort equals reward. If I work at something, if I put my mind to it, it'll happen. And I love what you said about how you're like, oh, screw you, body. Like I'm, a big deal in my career and in, my chosen field. I can do that as if I can't get pregnant, as if I can't override a few, negative comments from a few doctors. I absolutely love that. And it's true, isn't it? We think we're so clever, the way that we build our careers and our lives and, we look at the world, but our bodies are so, so much more intelligent than we are. And we don't give ourselves credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, I was more fertile in my 40s than I was in my 30s as a result of this work. And as a result of having the humility to learn something different. Because, I mean, this journey, I say this in many different ways, but it was one of the best things that could have happened in my life, is that it really knocked me down a few pegs. And I don't see that in a negative way. I see that in a really kind and generous way, where life will kick you in the face, but it's always for your benefit, because I came out of this so much better and so much more aware. And frankly, the woman I actually wanted to be as my son's mother, because I shudder to think of how I would have passed on old programming, old belief systems had I not done the work. So I tell women all the time, this journey is preparation. It is preparation not only for the woman that you want to become, but the mother you want to become.
That's exactly it. We get so focused on this. I've got to get the positive pregnancy test. That's what I've got to get to. But no, that's a fraction of a moment in time when it comes to what you really want, isn't it? You want to be a mother, you want to be a parent, you want to share this life with your child or your children. And that goes so far beyond this pregnancy test, but we get so fixated on that, don't we? I love what you said about, it does feel very woo-woo, doesn't it, when we talk about our mindset, because we can't see it in the way that we can look at blood test results or scan results or, have a medication given to us. But it really isn't. And I think that these mindset practices, they are becoming studied more and more, and the results are very hard to argue with. So can you explain a little bit about what is your approach when you work with women, and how is this different to, say, other coaches out there or other people's ways of doing things?
Yeah, well, I like to focus in on, the women that I serve are lovably type A, control freaky professionals like myself, physicians, lawyers, teachers, nurses, engineers, women who come from a more traditional background in what they do, that very kind of masculine training is essentially. And so the way that I like to look at this is, most of us were not raised hugging trees or things like that. It was very cause and effect, logical and linear. So when I'm teaching mindset and teaching these concepts, I meet women where they're at. And, if somebody tried to approach me all those years ago with ideas about mindset, I probably would have rejected them until I was in a place where I had failed enough to say, yeah, okay, you know what? My way isn't working. And I bring to the table 10 plus years in the courtroom. So I tend to be a little salty, Jennifer. So I am not exactly the kind of coach that's going to coddle you. I speak to women very directly, but always from a place of love. I am going to call it like I see it, with thousands of women having come through my programs and teachings and, tens of thousands of books sold. I come to women with a sincere, from the trenches, insider information perspective. Like, hey, babe, that's not working. This will. And it's the kind of authority and certainty that I think a lot of women are looking for on this journey. It's certainly, the way I coach is certainly not for the faint of heart, but it is for the success oriented. It is for women that are absolutely committed. I don't hide that fact. Like, I work with women who are committed to getting and staying pregnant in the next 12 months. If that is not for you, then I am not the coach for you, because women come to me when they want to succeed. Because these practices and this methodology that I teach works. It works every single time if you're willing to work it. Now, everybody's timing is a little bit different, but when you step into the power of making the decision that you are going to be the woman who makes a decision, because that's a critical piece as well, is you have to decide that you are going to be successful. Many people think that success on this journey just happens by luck. I do not believe in luck. I believe that we make our own quote unquote luck. So that all comes from learning to think, believe, and take action like a woman who succeeds. And the number one aspect of this, Jennifer, really is women taking their authority back, that they become the authority on their journey, because far too many women are handing their authority over to wonderfully well-intentioned people in white coats who live by algorithms and statistics. And we're talking about the miracle of life. Neither is an algorithm, nor is it a statistic. My ladies are all about becoming outliers.
I love that, an outlier. Isn't that so true? Because like yourself, I was given less than 5% chance of IVF working when I was 37. And I think a close to 1% chance of ever falling pregnant naturally on my own. Like, where do these statistics come from? And I hate them because, I suppose doctors do need success rates. They need to be able to refer to something, and that's how they're taught, and that's how their world works. But you are not a statistic. You are a woman with your own body, your own ways of approaching things. And I find time and time again, this idea of being able to change your mindset has incredible results. And you can't explain it. Like, you from a doctor's perspective, there's no reason on paper that you fell pregnant naturally at 43 that they can't explain with, we didn't give her this medication, we didn't get her hormone levels to this particular. Do you know what I mean? So what is mindset to you? What does it really mean when you're trying to conceive? And why is this more important than things like the perfect diet and taking all these perfect supplements?
Well, when I think about mindset, so mindset is quite literally the way you think and what you think. So it's a combination of what you think, the way you think, how you process information. And for me, mindset is healthcare. Mindset is healthcare. It is primary. It is not something that comes secondary because your brain is portable. It is going everywhere with you. So, how you are perceiving information, how you are interpreting interactions, what you do with statistics. I mean, it is at a very baseline, at some level, a little bit of enhanced critical thinking. Because chances are, Jennifer, you weren't included in those studies. Those studies were probably 20 years old. They didn't include you, they didn't include your ancestry, they didn't include your unique personal history. They are but one piece of information. Yet, because they are allegedly tangible, women will go to those and cling to them. The only real chances you have are it will or it will not happen. It's 50-50. Okay. So, and it doesn't, like, those statistics are also not looking at what I had talked about earlier, outliers. Nobody's really studying why women in their 40s are getting pregnant naturally. They'll just pass it off as luck without really looking at it, because if you're getting pregnant naturally, you're not buying pharmaceuticals and you're not buying healthcare in the same way. It's different. So I really encourage women that, look, when you start with a strong mindset as your baseline, you're less likely to make fear-based choices that suck, get ushered into possibly, wildly invasive treatments that are not right for you. You're less likely to be bullied into making choices that you don't want to make. And you're more engaged in your relationships, including your intimate partnership, as well as relationships with the people around you who love you. And those are all things that create the constellation of experiences that we have on this journey. So if that is skewed, and if that is in constant fear, doubt, negativity, comparison, and the whole clown car of negative thoughts and beliefs that we're talking about, you are going to create a very different result. And we have had this information. I mean, it's tragic that we are not talking about it more, but this is readily available on PubMed here in the States, that mind-body work, when we're looking at mindset, when we're looking at women getting support and having community during the fertility treatment process, we see that the time to conception is shorter. Like, they actually studied women and cortisol levels. Women with the highest cortisol levels took the longest to get pregnant if they ever got pregnant. So what is that telling us, right? Stress is a factor, and our thoughts and beliefs shape our perceptions, which directly feed into our level of stress. So it's like, it's this continuum, and which only bolsters my position that mindset is foundational. So if you build a house on a crappy foundation, it's going to come tumbling down. If you create a mindset that's strong on this journey, that is based on, the desire in my heart to be a mom is there because it was meant for me. My ladies hear me say that thousands and thousands of times, but it's because I mean it. Like, I have yet to meet a woman who was consistent and did not give up on herself, that didn't find a way to make motherhood her reality. And so that shows you at a very basic level how much power we have on this journey if we're willing to seize it.
Mm-hmm. And this idea of power within yourself it's a very hard thing to take back, isn't it? Because, like you said, we hand over our bodies, our lives, our money, our everything to these doctors with so much experience, and they are well-intentioned, I believe, for the majority, and all they want is for you to have a family. But when that happens, and especially when you go down this medical route, it is so hard to take a step back and ask yourself and your body what you need. And I think that trusting your own instincts and your own intuition is one of the hardest things because we're not taught how to do it. When are we taught this stuff, right? And especially like there's something so primal about wanting to be a parent, isn't there? And when it's taken away from you and you're being told this and that, and why wouldn't we believe these doctors who are so clever and so experienced? So how can we take that power back? How can we listen to our own intuition when we are struggling?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll start off answering that question with something that I think women need to hear. Some of my very best and most successful clients are physicians. So the smart ones know that medicine can only take you so far. And when you are looking to bridge the gap between where you are today and where you want to be, and you're calling in a miracle, you cannot do that without you. Like you have massive input. And we see this in cancer patients. We see this in a lot of chronic illness, that so much of what's going on in our head is manifesting in our body. Now, I know me using the word manifestation sounds woo woo, but it really isn't. It is a fact. It's quite logical and linear. And so, if we're talking about intuition, intuition is a critical aspect of this. And I like to look at intuition as our higher knowing, our sense of knowing. And a prime example of that is when I knew it was time to stop doing IVF. It was a sense of peace. I didn't know what my next steps were going to be. There was just this sense of peace that washed over me and said, "Yeah, I'm not doing that again." And I'm totally cool with it. And I'm totally cool with exploring where this next step is going to take me. And that made no sense because if anything, at my age, around the time I stopped doing IVF, most women would put their foot on the gas and go bonkers with it. But I knew that my journey was not going to end with IVF. I knew that there was something more. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I just knew I had this feeling that there was more for me and there was more for me to continue to grow into in this process. So intuition is readily available for everybody. Everyone has it. But as you very astutely pointed out, it's a question of learning to tap into it and trusting it. And the funny thing is that like our field of vision is really small. Like we're only seeing, like I was listening to something not that long ago that, we are only seeing a tiny portion of what is in the physical world. Like, our brain runs on programs. So our confirmation bias and our routines will have us see things that are lined up with our preconceived notions. So you can have two people look at seemingly the same scene in front of them, but they're going to pick up based on their own perceptions tons of different things. They're not going to see the same scene the same way. So what does that tell us? That just because something is in front of you, a set of circumstances, whether it's your fertility history that might be a little shady or statistics or your age, you're only seeing a tiny portion of what's possible. So when you go inward and you connect with that still small voice, as it is often called, you are going to get perceptions and information that is not confined to our five senses. In fact, it's above all of that. It's above the confines of matter, and it is connected to something much higher. And I bet if you ask, and I bet this was true for you, there was something in you that knew. Like every woman that I speak to is like, there's just something in me that says motherhood is for me. It doesn't make sense. I've helped women from ages 28 to 53 get pregnant, and at ages when most women would have given up. But they consistently hear this call. So the question is, are we going to listen? And I like to encourage women like, hey, if you've been disconnected from your intuition for a minute, like let's reconnect. And one of those ways is just listening to the desire. What is it that you want? Right? It can start with something super small. Like if you're at lunch and a sandwich calls to you more than a salad, pick the freaking sandwich. Not because it's the sandwich, but because it like you felt called to it. And like be willing to explore this side of yourself. You might fuck up every now and then, but that's okay. We are imperfect beings, but what brings us closer to the perfection that we desire, but we'll never attain, is this willingness to explore that side. I'm going to get the sandwich because I want to see what happens as a result of me following that desire. So it's about living by desire more than just living by our five senses, because you never know where that's going to take you, especially on this journey.
That so leads me into the next question I wanted to ask you, this idea of being this good girl when we're trying to conceive. And I think a lot of women can relate to this. You know, you grow up, you're told to not be too loud, not be too much, don't show too much of your body. You know, you've got all these rules that you have to abide by. And when we get stuck in this place of struggling with fertility, all of this comes up. I see it time and time again. It's, you know, what have I done wrong? What is wrong with my body? What do I need to do to my body to fix it? What is the doctor telling me? I have to do what I'm told by this. You know what I mean? It just keeps going. And I don't think that serves us in any way at all. What are your thoughts around this?
I think that's a great observation. I think it also harkens back to this idea of who is the authority in our lives. And, you know, it's like I run into women in their 40s all the time who are still acting as if they're 12, you know, as far as how they distribute their authority. They are checking in with everybody else and not asking themselves like some pretty critical questions. Number one, what do I want? And number two, who is the authority in my life? Because often of what it means to live by desire and go with what they want, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else, but also to be willing to take responsibility for that outcome. And because that's really stepping into our big girls' panties, isn't it? Like to be able to say, no, yes, I'm 49, but I know in my heart that having a baby is for me. So I'm going to do whatever the hell it takes to get to that place. I don't care what anybody says. Like, think about that woman's outcome versus somebody in their early 40s who is scared of their own shadow and is just going to, you know, go with whatever everybody else tells them. I mean, and the reality is most people are conditioned to give up after 2 or 3 tries. But we don't ever ask. Yeah, but we don't ever ask or question, you know, what is that authority based on? And is that an authority I want to hand my life over to? You know, and it's just, I always encourage women, look, at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own happiness. And when you use excuses like, oh, my partner isn't, you know, up for this, it's too much money, it takes too much time. Like, what are you going to say to yourself when you're 75? Because then it's too late. Arguably, it is too late. And at that point, like, I mean, there's nothing more expensive than regret. So I always encourage my ladies to regret proof their journey by doing exactly whatever the hell they want on it, so that they're turning over every stone that feels good to them so they can create the result that they want.
That's amazing advice.
That's very bad girl.
Such a good girl. You're bad girl. Stop being the good girl. Exactly. That is what we need. I'd love to talk to you about community and, you know, getting yourself into this place of being around others who get it and getting into this higher vibrational state. And again, when we talk about vibration, that sounds like one of these kind of woo-woo manifesty kind of terms that people tend to then go, oh, well, you know, that doesn't make any difference. But it really does. Can you talk about what you find with the women that you work with, this idea of being able to surround yourself with people who get it and how that helps you long term?
I love that you kind of made that face when you're talking about it being manifesty and woo woo. It's just fucking science, right? We know that there is a field of energy. Science has been reluctant to admit this, but it is known. We all have an energetic field around us measuring a couple meters. This is not new. This is not novel. We know this. And they've even measured the amount of electricity moving through the heart that we used to be told was a pump. It's not. There's so much more going on. There's like 3 billion volts of energy going through us. I mean, and that's, you'll have to look up exactly how many volts if it really matters, but it's something crazy like that. It's almost incomprehensible. So everything is vibrating. All matter vibrates, right? If you look at an atom, you split it apart, it's mostly space. So we all are putting out a vibration. And as a result, people talk about the law of attraction, but the law of attraction is actually a secondary law to the law of vibration, because you can only attract things that are at the same vibration that you are at. So when you're in fear, you're in doubt, you're in negativity, that is a low vibrational state. So you call in things that match that vibration. So it only makes sense that if you're in a higher vibe, when you're surrounded by people you love, people who get it, people who love you unconditionally, your vibration goes up. When you're experiencing joy, Jennifer, for heaven's sake, I tell women all the time, this journey can be wildly joyous. In fact, I encourage them to get as much vitamin J for joy as they can, because nothing about my diet was allegedly good, according to the fertility gurus. Okay, I was eating raw cheese in the south of France. I was drinking champagne. I was wearing stilettos on cobblestone. I was doing all the things that you shouldn't do. Gluten was passing my lips, if you can imagine that. We were all over Europe and came home and conceived my son. But that's because we were freaking happy. And having women around me, having cultivated community around me of women that, and at the time, it wasn't women who were on this journey. It was just women who got me, and I would change that. If I was to live my journey again, I would change that a little bit. It was just, this was so many years ago that it was like this, topic was still kind of in the shadows. But what mattered is that I was happy. What mattered is that I was building community of people who were seekers, people who wanted more than what was average, people who loved to grow and be educated. And so this is vital. So when I think about what makes women successful on this journey, not only myself, but the women all over the world that I've helped: structure, consistency, community. This is why listening to one podcast is not going to get you pregnant, okay? It's about what you're doing consistently. It's about the chain of events that come as a result of what you're doing. Because some of this mindset stuff, it's not that hard from a conceptual standpoint. But the question is, are you following through? Are you being consistent? Have you given yourself the kind of support that you need to change old patterns, to heal old traumas, to get out of lack and scarcity, which so many women struggle with on this journey, whether it's time, money, resources, love. I mean, lack and scarcity and the belief in that is, I think, the real pandemic. I think that is the thing that we should all be scared of, because it's robbing people of their quality of life. And if they are not careful, it is going to rob them of their chance to being a mom. So when you can cultivate community around you of like-minded seekers and like-minded women who want to achieve big things and don't buy the garbage that you're too much, you can't have that, you're too old, you've tried too many times, it's like putting jet fuel in your tank. I've watched women who were crave this go from pain and despair into baby number 1, 2, 3, and beyond. So I hope women really take that to heart, because we try to gut it out, Jennifer. We think, oh, I'm going to do this all on my own. And it's like, okay, if you want it to take 10 times longer, but we're so much stronger together.
Oh, I love that so much. So damn true. If anyone takes anything away from this conversation, that would be it. Oh, can you tell us about your latest book? I would love to hear a little bit more about what your thought process was. It's called The Feminine Fertility Cure. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Yes. This was a book that I've been wanting to write from the very beginning, but it really wasn't until the past year that I was really ready to write it. And what this is a love letter and overall invitation for women to come back to their feminine. And it's kind of funny because when people hear that, they're like, feminine? I mean, you're a woman. And it's like, well, yeah, but since the women's movement, we have been stuck in our masculine. And it's a hilarious treatise, I think, on the scam. I call it a scam because I think a lot of women have been scammed out of their femininity. We were told that if you want to be successful, if you want to achieve, you have to achieve on masculine terms. And, I draw upon my own experience a lot for this because I was a trial attorney. It was a very male dominated. I mean, even though there were a lot of women in my office, some of the best trial attorneys were women. It was that our expectation is that we were going to kind of act like men. We were going to pack up our emotion. It doesn't matter if I'm cross-examining somebody who perpetrated a sex crime on a child. I'd have to pack it up. I'd have to not show any emotion. And then I couldn't be too stern. I couldn't be too soft. It was like, I can't just be myself. And it's funny that so many of us, even the way we dress in the professions, right? We tend to be a little bit more masculine. We don't show our femininity. And we just have to don this mask of masculinity. So it's really an invitation for women to rediscover this side of themselves because getting pregnant and giving birth is in the realm of the female. It is the most intensely feminine thing you will ever do. And if you want to do that like a man, good luck. And it's just fascinating to me. I mean, because I work with professional women, I see so many women stuck in this mode. And I made the decision that if I was going to truly help women, I have to address this topic because I think we've been fed a line of goods that, real choice for women is the ability, hey, if you want to be in your masculine, great. But there's nothing wrong with a woman deciding that she wanted to pursue success on her terms. And it's amazing if she happens to choose a more feminine approach. So that's really what it's about. And it's really interesting how much this one concept has changed so many women's lives, especially on this journey.
And beyond as well. It has such a flow-on effect to so many parts of your life, where things don't have to be hard, where we
Mm-mm.
where we make them hard.
Mhm.
I think that is very much worth pointing out. So thank you so much for that, Rosanne. Where can people learn more about you? Where can they connect with you and learn about working with you?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I mean, this has been such an incredible conversation. It's really cool to be able to talk with somebody who gets it and who understands and has lived it and has also seen the result in her own life. So it's been great. So I'm super active on Instagram. Women can find me at Rosanne Austin Fertility. You can also find my books on Amazon or wherever books are sold. And yeah, my website is from maybe2baby.com. And yeah, there's you can find me on YouTube. I mean, we sprinkle our goods pretty much everywhere, so we're pretty easy to find.
Wonderful. And I will link all of those in the show notes as well. Is there any last little bits of advice or words that you want to leave people with before we finish up?
Yeah, I really want to emphasize for women that are listening to trust themselves. To trust themselves. Like, I don't care how shady your fertility past is, how old you are, how long you've been trying, how ridiculous you may feel. This is your opportunity to not live your life in regret. Stay on the journey, go for it. Go until you get that dream and let it become your reality, because at the end of the day, it is worth every bump, bruise, and whatever it is that we go through. It is so worth it, and more importantly, they are worth it. So keep
Mm,
going, mamas.
thank you, Rosanne. I look forward to speaking with you again soon. This has been amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me and thank you for sharing this vision. It's such a delight. And I really hope that this is going to light a fire under any woman's butt who's listening to this to not hand over her power and to stand in the fact that she was meant to be a mom.
I have no doubt that it will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening right to the end of this episode. Isn't she so brilliant to listen to? And if you haven't heard Rosanne's podcast, I highly recommend that you do. She shares so much wisdom on there. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with others, because I think that these kinds of messages are things that we're just not taught that easily, especially not from the medical world, and they are so important to know. Now, on the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be sharing the 5 things that I stopped doing when I was trying to conceive. We talk so much about what to add into our lives, etc., but removing these small things within my life made such a difference. So until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.